guys, welcome back to our channel. We have had a request to make a video on how we pressure can our stew meat. So I'll be showing you today how we do that and just show you the steps as we go through the process. So we are in the process of cutting up my son's elk that he got, and we've got my big canner pot here full of stew meat. So we're going to fill it almost to the top with stew meat, and then we will cover it with water. We like to cut our stew meat in about 1-inch squares. And now I'm just going to set this on medium. If you have an outdoor burner or a barbecue grill, something that will hold this heavy pot, it is better to do it on something like that than your electric stove, because these heavy pots do make the elements go out a lot faster. I think what I'll do is I'll take part of this out and put it in another pot, because I don't need this much hot at one time. Alright, so our pot of meat is nearly brown enough. I'm just going to let it heat up to where it's bubbling a little bit, and then we'll fill our jars. We've got our canner getting warm over here and our lids in a small pan in the back warming up. I've got my jars all clean, and I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt in the bottom of each one, and this is just sea salt. Salt is optional when you're canning meat, at least stew meat anyway. But we like to add it for the flavor and just for the extra protection that it adds in preserving the meat. The meat is brown enough now, and we're going to start filling jars. I like to use a Pyrex 2-cup measuring cup to fill my jars with. It's a lot faster for me than a ladle. And then I just use a plate to catch the drips. And we want to leave 1 inch of headspace and take all the bubbles out of our jar. You want to make sure that cooking liquid covers the stew meat. Now I'm going to wipe the rims with vinegar. You can use hot water, but I like to use vinegar because it cuts the grease. And once the rims are clean, we'll put on the lids. Just to finger tight. So in the bottom of my canner, I put 2 inches of water, and I put the rack in. I've got my hot filled jars in there, and now I'm just going to set the lid on. So once I get the lid on, I like to look at the gap between the lid and the base of the pot. You want the gap to be the same all the way around, and then you bring up opposite wing nuts, and you just want to tighten them snug. You don't want to tighten them fully until you have them all up. And once they're all in place, then you go back and you start tightening them down a little more firmly. Okay, so these are all tightened down, and now I want my canner, I'm going to turn it up, and I want my canner to start steaming out the vent pipe here, and once it starts steaming, then I'll time it for 10 minutes. When I see steam start to come out of the vent port, I set the timer for 10 minutes and let it exhaust all of the slack air out of the canner. And once the timer goes off, we'll go ahead and put our weighted gauge on there, adjusting for altitude. I need 15 pounds of pressure, so I put it on the 15 mark right there. And then we'll let it come up to temperature, and when the weighted gauge starts to jiggle, that's when I know that it's the right pressure. And then we also have the pressure gauge dial, and we can tell when it's getting close to pressure by reading the dial. Now that the weight is rocking, I'm going to turn it down to medium high. You may have to readjust it. And then I'm going to set my timer for 1 hour and 30 minutes. So this weighted gauge should go ahead and jiggle and let off steam from 1 to 4 times per minute. So you don't want it to go all the way silent, but you don't want it to be rocking constantly, because that will cook all of your water away and you'll lose your steam. Alright, so now that our time is up, we're going to go ahead and turn our canner off, and then I'll just let the pressure come down naturally. I don't want to remove the weight until the pressure gauge reads 0. And then we'll remove the weight. Now that the pressure has dropped to 0, I'm going to go ahead and remove the weight with a towel. I'm going to remove it very slowly. If you depressurize your canner too fast, it will cause the water inside the jars, or the liquid inside the jars, to leach out. To siphon out rather, and we don't want any siphoning to happen, so we do everything very slowly. Now I'm going to let this sit for 10 minutes and then I'll start loosening the lid. Alright, it's set for 10 minutes and it's time to start loosening the wing nuts, and we want to do this very slowly and loosen ones across from each other. And then I'm going to take the lid off. And I'm just going to set the lid like this so that the steam can escape very slowly. And then we'll take it off and take our jars out. Alright, now I'm going to lift the lid off. You want to be careful because the steam is still very hot. And now I'm just going to take my jar lifters, lift them out, and set them on our towel. I've got the next batch ready to go. And now I just need to let these cool, and then I'll wash them off before I put them in the cupboard. Well, thanks for following along as we canned our stew meat. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see the full video of how we break down an elk, you can check out the video that I will link at the end of this one, and we'll catch you on the next video.